whether they're competitors for mates or for territory, then being sadistic about it.
That would be a niche theory in some sense, I guess, is that I know that the worldwide prevalence of psychopathy ranges between 1% and 5%, hovers around 3%. And what it seems to indicate, because it's relatively stable, is that although being a psychopath isn't a particularly successful strategy, in that 97% of people don't take that route, in a cooperative society, a niche does open up for people who are willing to use manipulation and impulsive behavior and sadism to dominate and use power oppressively to at least, what would you say, carve out for themselves some degree of success, and then now and then some spectacular success, I suppose, which would be the case with people who are extraordinarily successful at being tyrants. And so we have two arguments there in some sense. One is like a neurobiological difference in response to the balance of positive and negative emotion in anger. And the other one is, well, there's a niche that opens up for people who are willing to use power and manipulation and so forth to attain the rewards of social dominance. And psychopaths seem to do that, right? Because they'll manipulate. They often have to move from place to place because people figure them out. But they will use short-term dominant strategies. I think you've related that too as well, the dark triad, to short-term mating strategies as well, right? Which is an interest. That's another thing that we could concentrate on, right? On what the dark triad predicts. The dark tetrad interested me particularly because the literature I read on psychopaths did describe them as impulsive. So they're willing even to sacrifice their own futures to the pleasure of the moment. But there was obviously a subset of psychopaths who delighted in being cruel. And the standard explanation of callousness, say, which is merely lack of empathy, didn't seem to be enough, right? Because it isn't merely that people are lacking empathy. It's that sometimes there are people who take a positive delight in cruelty, and that there's a new term that's used to describe online mobbing behavior or bullying behavior, troll behavior, which is lulz, right? I just did it for the lulz, which is the plural of LOL, laugh out loud. And to do it for the lulz is to go after someone on the net, often anonymously, merely for the purpose of making them miserable and wretched and put them in pain, just so that you can enjoy that. And certainly that's not mere psychopathy, right? That's not mere impulsiveness. There's an additional component that's worth concentrating on.
All right, so you covered a lot of ground there. Picking up on the argument for psychopaths being impulsive, just to remind viewers who are not that familiar with evolutionary theory, the simple argument is you got to get mates to maintain your genes in the gene pool. And there are many ways of doing that, right? One is to grab and run with whatever you want, using force if necessary. That will sometimes get you mates. More strategic Machiavellians find ways of manipulating others to get their genes into the gene pool. Narcissists seem to attract mates partly because of their confidence, even if it is overconfidence. Sadists are a little harder to see. Why would being sadistic get you romantic and sexual partners? Well, I think I touched on the only explanation that I could think of, and I think you mentioned it too, and that is, well, you scare off your competitors, and you even scare off your mate into doing what you want by hurting them, and in a very public way. So you're deterring reactions from other people, and that may be of benefit in some circumstances. And then you went into the niche theory, or niche, as some people say. Yeah, there's a lot of niches out there for dark personalities. Each one may require very select kinds of traits, but if you want a job as an enforcer and on a hockey team, you better damn well be able to and willing to and like to hurt other people.
It also might be, so I know someone quite well. So I talked to him. He was often hired by corporations to fire people. And he's a very disagreeable person, but he's very high in conscientiousness. So I was talking to him at one point in my lab because I was struggling with a few students and who I eventually let go. And I really realized that I probably had kept them in the lab longer than I should have, and that their poor performance was demotivating some of the people in my lab who are very high performers and, just producing a decrement in the overall quality of our work. And part of the reason I think I failed to take action is because I am a rather agreeable person, and I find firing people, let's say, very distasteful. And so I talked to my associate, my friend, about firing people, and he said, I enjoy it. And I said, that really surprised me. And this is someone I admire and respect, very competent person, by the way. I said, well, why is that? He said, well, I go into corporations and I ferret out the people who are kissing up and kicking down. I ferret out the narcissists. I ferret out the people who, as I alluded to, take credit when they haven't done anything and cast aspersions on others when they have done something, and who are clearly not doing their job. And then also, I go after people for whom it would be better in some real sense to be off doing something else. And his continual pattern of employment for multiple years, because he was particularly good at this, was he'd go into a corporation that was failing and start to fire people at the bottom and then climb the hierarchy. And then when he got too close to the top, they'd fire him, of course. But, it was really interesting to me because it's also possible that some of these traits, the more psychopathic traits, have a positive utility socially, even speaking morally, when they're combined with other personality traits, right? But that are particularly, like maybe it's not so bad to be low in agreeableness if you're high in conscientiousness. But maybe it's really bad to be low in agreeableness if you're really high in neuroticism or really low in conscientiousness. And so you could see that tilt towards less empathy, which might make you capable, for example, of enforcing rules, might be, as I said, might be extraordinarily useful, even pro-socially under some circumstances, but very pathological under others.
Yeah, there's a